and welcome to Energy Top Up, where we give you easy yet effective exercises to build your resilience and your inner strength. Now, today we are looking at engaging the authentic self, because when we're authentic, it makes us better role models, it makes us healthier people as well. It also makes us more successful. But sometimes we get used to doing something that is called the adaptive self. And this is because there are expectations placed on us. It might be because of our culture. It might be because of the role we're playing, such as mum or leader or teacher or nurse. And this adaptive self can begin to take over a little bit. But we're not telling you to leave that behind. However, if you start to engage with your authentic self as well, you feel a lot more holistic, and it does make you a lot more comfortable in your own skin. I'm chartered psychologist Dr. Audrey Tang, and with me is the amazing, award-winning parent and family coach, Sharon Lawton.
Hi everybody, and hi Audrey, welcome back this week. Now, as Audrey said, we've definitely got something fab for you this week. Do you ever feel like something is missing in your life, that you're not being that real you? As Audrey said, maybe you've adapted who you are because of constantly being told, now don't be bossy, or just calm down, without any explanation when you were a child. Maybe you're constantly stuck trying to please others, but as a result, not pleasing yourselves. So you're not alone if you feel like that. Expectations are hard to overcome. And when we realise that if we try and please everyone, we end up pleasing no one, including ourselves, that can lead us to feeling like we've lost sight of who we are and we lose sight of ourselves completely. So today's show is all about engaging with your authentic self and giving you exercises that will help you understand not just yourself, but others as well, so it can support you live your best life. Isn't that right, Audrey?
100%. And so today's warm-up is getting you in touch with your vitals. Vitals is the acronym I'm going to be using to let you start thinking about what is truly important to you, because our vitals are as essential to being authentic as food and water and air are as essential to life. So if you're not engaged with your vitals, then you tend to have a few struggles. I'm not saying to leave anything behind, but I am suggesting if you focus on living your vitals, you might find your life begins to broaden and open up a little bit more. So V. V stands for values. What are they? Your values, there may be just 2 or 3 of them. Don't have too many, but whatever they are, really concentrate on living those values every single day. Maybe it's kindness or loyalty or humor or professionalism. Whatever those values are that are important to you, focus on living them. And what you'll tend to find is the people who also have those values will start gravitating towards you. It's not a case of shutting out anybody or pushing away anyone that you might feel is a bit toxic in your life, but simply concentrate on living your values. So that's the V. I is your interests. Now, are you a painter who doesn't paint, a writer who doesn't write? It might be that you have interests which you don't engage in because you love doing certain things. If you're not doing them, even just a little bit, you can feel a little bit lost. Now, I'm not saying just because you used to run triathlons, you have to go out and run 5 kilometers or something like that. I am just saying, if you enjoy a bit of health and fitness, get a little bit more into your life. It doesn't have to be a massive change, just a tiny one. So similarly, if you used to like art, maybe just doodle something. T, temperament. Now, temperament is an interesting one because a lot of the time we do adapt our temperament. We maybe have to become very patient in certain situations when we actually get quite frustrated. But when it comes to our temperament, we feel most comfortable when we're allowed to express it in the way we enjoy doing it. For example, if you are normally exuberant, if you're always being told to just keep it down a little bit, that can feel a little bit frustrating. So maybe seek out places where that type of temperament is appropriate and acceptable, or find outlets for it. So really think about what your preferred temperament is and see if you can find a way of using that a little bit more. A stands for around the clock. Are you a morning person or an evening person? Now, some of us are night owls. We work a lot easier in the middle of the night. Some of us prefer to get up early and get things done. If you are working in an environment where actually you're working against your natural circadian rhythms, again, you can adapt, but it can be quite troubling for you. So really think about how you feel most comfortable and see if you can work out a way of getting that into your system, into your structure that you have right now. L, life goals. Now, these are really important because if you think back to the big achievements in your life that were meaningful to you, that will give you an indication of what your purpose is, what you really want out of life. And again, if you're not doing that in your work, find a way of seeing if you can bring that in. So for example, I love a lot of the creative projects I've done. So I find a way of bringing that creativity into my training, into my speaking. So life goals, remember what's meaningful to you and use them. And finally, S stands for strengths. It might well be that we have many strengths that we're not able to use right now. Again, find a way of incorporating those into your life. If you are a really friendly, outgoing person, then think about a way of maybe networking or meeting up with people online. I know we're still in lockdown at the moment, but really look for a way of exploring and using some of those strengths. And if you're having trouble thinking about them, think about what your friends might say your strengths were. So really focus this week on living your vitals, because they are as important to our authentic self as food and water are to our physical self. And with that, I'm going to hand you straight over to Sharon for our first exercise. Over to you, Sharon.
Thanks, Audrey. And that links so well to our first exercise. So thank you so much. So over the past few shows, I've been sharing with you how our brain works in different episodes. And I want to share with you a different part of our brain, a part of our brain that is called the Reptilia Activating System, or RAS for short. Now, I like to call RAS our inner brain genie, and I've got my little genie of the lamp here. Now, the reason why I call it our inner brain genie is because it's like our own very obedient servant. It does exactly what we ask it to do. It brings our attention to what we're focusing on the most, both the good and the bad. So how does our reptilia activating system work? Well, let me give you a couple of examples. It's the part of our brain that if we're in a really busy coffee shop and there's loads of noise, we still hear our name being spoken across the other side of the room. It's the part of our brain that also, if we notice a noise that's really annoying and we say to ourselves, gosh, that's an annoying noise, all of a sudden, all we can hear is that very annoying noise. So it focuses our attention on what we are noticing, what we are looking at, what we are paying attention to the most. Now, the thing about that is, if we think about today's show and about living up to expectations, our inner brain genie might be bringing your attention to all of those should words. Now, should words are a real no-go area for me. And maybe you're hearing things like, I should be able to, I should have been able to do X, Y, Z, or I'm never going to be as good as. And these are all red flags, because if we're thinking that, then our inner brain genie is going to bring us all of the evidence, everything that we need to validate what we're actually thinking about. Or maybe our brain genie is constantly focusing on all of our weaknesses, all of the things we can't do well, our differences perhaps. But have you ever considered that it's our differences that are often our strengths? Being told that we were bossy as a child, as an adult, shows good leadership. Being told that we are overexcited and calm down is really a strength of enthusiasm. Being told that we're too quiet or calm or nothing to say may be a strength of being reflective. So have a think about what your strengths are. As Audrey said in our warm-up, really important. Are you honest? Are you reliable? Are you a good listener? Are you quirky? Do you stand up for what you really believe in? Start to get your inner brain genie to focus on your strengths. If you need some help, well, maybe have a think about writing them down. What would your best friend say? But also, if you really just can't think of anything at all, maybe have a think about strength cards. Now, I've got some beautiful strength cards, both for children and for adults, on my online shop. And they will help you to have a think about what your strengths are and will really help you to adapt them and put them into everyday life. So make sure your inner brain genie is focusing on what you can do, making sure it focuses on your strengths and bringing your attention to what you can do rather than what you can't do. What about you, Audrey? What does your inner brain genie focus you on?
That's a good question, Sharon. I think my inner brain genie sometimes focuses on the fact that, as you say, I am overexcited sometimes, but I think I'm just passionate. And now that you've let me think about reframing that, I can see that channeling my passion positively into something appropriate, and it allows me then to, I guess, switch it off or calm it down or manage it better in the situations where perhaps that passion may be misconstrued or misread. So really interesting activity there is to focus on your strengths as strengths. So thank you
absolutely.
for that. Really nice. And that leads so perfectly onto how we can use some of the strengths that you've identified. Now, this is a personal SWOT analysis. Now, you may have used these in business. You look at strengths, you look at weaknesses, you look at opportunities, and you look at threats. Now, it's very important to, of course, focus on what makes us us. And the positive strengths, as Sharon has suggested, can be written down, and they can be written in the strengths column. But the other thing that you can be aware of is some of the things that you'd like to improve on, because one of the best strengths we can have is a joy of learning, wanting to know more. So anything that we think maybe could do a bit of development, we can pop in the W, in the weaknesses side. They're not necessarily weaknesses that we have to live with, they're things that we want to change. Then consider what opportunities might be available to us, but also consider the things that may hold us back, the barriers. But I don't necessarily like the word threats. I like to think of them as priorities sometimes as well, because what might come under here is perhaps you can't move house. Perhaps you have commitments that you have to fulfill. Those may be seen as obstacles which you have to find a way of overcoming, but it doesn't mean you cannot overcome them. So the way I would use a personal SWOT analysis is to think about what my goal is, what I would like to achieve, and write that down. So have your goal. Then list the strengths that you have relating to that goal. List the areas of development that you can have. List the opportunities that might be available to you, such as finding a network or maybe some training that you've done recently, but also consider the things that you are not willing to give up, because those are essential as well. Don't forget, our authentic self is all about thinking about who we are as a person holistically. And when you have those written out where you can see them, you're able to consider your goal. And now it's back to Sharon for exercise 2.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Audrey. I love the personal SWOT analysis. We hear about it in business, but, you know, thinking about using it on a personal level is so important, so important. So back over in the warm-up, Audrey mentioned temperament. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking to you about that. Now, have you ever noticed, I certainly have, that there are people in life and in our families that we click with, and some people that we just clash with, no matter how hard we try. Now, we can meet somebody perhaps for the first time, and within minutes we feel like we've known them all of our lives. We just get them. We communicate, that everything flows really, really well. And there are other people perhaps in life that you think to yourself, I've known this person for years, and no matter how hard I try, I just don't understand them. We just don't be able to communicate well. I don't get what they do. We clash more than we click. And we can't understand perhaps why they behave and why they do what they do. Well, people are different, of course they are, but they're predictably different if you know what to look for. And that's the secret of the people puzzle. Now, let me introduce you to the DISC behaviour model. And it's based on our personality and our temperament. Now, some people in life are very fast paced. They make decisions very quickly. They get things done very quickly. And some people in life are a little bit slower paced. They like to reflect. Life is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Again, if we start to observe people, we can also see that some people are very drawn towards people. So it's all about the emotions and the feelings and connecting in with other people. But there are other people that we meet that perhaps feel a little bit colder to us if we are over here as a preference. And they are all about the task and getting things done. Now, there's a very fantastic model which I use with families and also in businesses called the DISC behaviour model. And it's based on this model that William Marsden put together back in the 1920s. And basically what he was saying is, if we start to basically look at people and how they operate, what we can start to observe is that people start to react in their own personal preferences. Now, people who are very fast paced, that are drawn towards the task, are what he calls our D styles. Now, our D style preference are very dominant in their presence. You will know if you're around someone who is a D style preference, because they will dominate the conversation. They'll be very direct with you in the way that they communicate. They will tell you exactly what they think, not because they want to upset your feelings, but because that's the way that they communicate. They wouldn't have been offended, so they don't expect you to either. They're very decisive. They make decisions very quickly. People to see, places to go, things to do. If we stick on the fast pace, but we move towards people, then this is our I style. Now, our I style people are social animals. They love to be around people. They love things to be fun. They're inspiring. They're interested in people. And for them, they have a great way of using their verbal persuasion skills to get you on board. They're social butterflies. They connect in with people all of the time. They like to be the star of the show, have lots of things on the go. They get bored if it's one thing all of the time. Let's have a look at this quadrant down here. We're still focused on people, but this time we like to reflect a little bit more. So maybe you know somebody who is sensitive, likes the status quo, approaches life steady. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. Extremely kind and honest. They'll be a great listener. They're always there to lend a listening ear. But because they are so kind, sometimes they get taken advantage of because they find it very hard to say no, because they always want to be there supporting people. For them, it's about let's do things together. It's all about the team. That's our S styles. And then staying with the reflective, slower pace to things, but looking more on the task is our little blue quadrant here. Now, the blue quadrant in Marsden's model is our C style. So maybe you know someone who is conscientious, very careful and considered. They like to get things done right. They like rules, procedures, processes and plans. They might be seen to be a little bit aloof because they're very happy being on their own, getting the job done, rather than connecting in with people. So remember, people are different, but they're predictably different if you know what to look for. And what we tend to do is we adapt and modify our behaviour to what's expected of us in our environment. And sometimes we just don't understand why people aren't just like us. But sometimes we have to think about adapting our behaviour to meet someone halfway. And that allows us to avoid conflict. It allows us to still be our true selves, but not to expect other people to be the same as us. Because that's what makes life interesting, right? different people. So if you want to find out a little bit more, there's lots of information, and we're just giving you a little taster this morning. But really interesting to sort of observe. And I know, having known Audrey for a really long time, that she's got lots of high I in her personality. She really loves to connect in with people, and very, as I said before, infectious enthusiasm. So Audrey, have you ever come across models like this or similar models to this in the work that you do? Because I know it's all based on the psychology of behaviour.
It is, yes. And what I love about William Marston is, of course, he's the founder, the creator of Wonder Woman too, which is brilliant.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love the DISC model. I use FIRO-B, again, with tons of acronyms in this particular episode today. And I like the idea that it teaches us to accept lots of different types of characters, but actually see the value in all of them.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Every single model that we use is just useful that way. And what is even more important about this model is how you use it in families, because of course the family's a team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a strength-based model. So it allows us, like I said before, with the rectiliar activating system, to look at our differences as strengths. And that can be really life-changing. Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you for that. And building on that is, when it comes to adapting, or when it comes to maybe changing our behavior a little bit in order to accept other people's views and work together in a harmonious manner, because that's what the situation calls for, there are some ways of doing it while still being true to your values and to your authentic self as well. And this is the last acronym of the day. This is DEAR. Be dear to people. Describe what it is you're feeling. Describe the facts of the situation. Describe what happened. If you're trying to sort out something, it's best to start with the story as you see it, but try to be as factual as possible, because in every story, there's often one point of view, another point of view, and the facts are somewhere in the middle. So try and describe those facts. Then express how you feel because of those facts. Because sometimes when people say something that might upset us, it's not because they're deliberately saying something nasty. It's just that they may not realize what they've said was careless or thoughtless, or maybe they didn't even know they were saying anything to upset us. So it's best to not necessarily jump to conclusions, but express our feelings based on those facts. Then assert. A is assert our solutions and remain true to our values. Now, the reason why I suggest asserting solutions is, of course, it's very easy to complain. It's very easy to say when we don't like something, but it's not as simple to come up with what to do about it. However, if you come up with a solution, if you suggest what to do, then you're more likely to stick to it. You're more likely to be behind it. And similarly, if you then listen to what the other person has to say, you might find a solution that's a good collaboration between the two of you that is workable. And if something is workable, it can then be reinforced. And what you haven't done is necessarily felt you've compromised, because when you compromise, it can feel as if both of you have lost a little bit. But instead, you have collaborated together. You've worked together to find something that's able to boost you both up, that's workable, given that the situation happened, how you feel about it, and a way forward from there. So really think about being dear to people when it comes to resolving conflict. Now, it's really important to start thinking about accepting differences from a very young age, and that is what Kirsty's homeschool is all about this week. And this week, Kirsty and Rosie are looking at differences and similarities between Rosie and her brother Edward.
Hello! Nice to see you all again. Well, this week we've been looking at differences, and we have been using a load of resources from Twinkle. Twinkle is fantastic for looking at ourselves and other people. Now, I have taught Rosie and Edward from a very, very young age on accepting other people and being aware of how different everybody is. From a young age, both my children have been exposed to people of varying race, colour, disability, and this is mainly because I want them to be so socially aware that not everyone is like them. Not everyone's family is like ours. We're very lucky. Our family is very diverse in many different ways, and this has only helped broaden both their knowledge on people and those around us. So one way we did this by looking at ourselves. So we downloaded some of these brilliant resources from Twinkle. One here that Rosie's going to show you now. And what's this one?
Mine.
It's all about you, isn't it? Yeah. So this page specifically looks at you yourself. You draw a picture and then you put in your name, your date of birth, your favourite food, your favourite colour, your favourite book, and your favourite TV show. So this is very much, yeah, Teen Titans. So this is very much looking at you yourself. Then the next exercise I did with them, with Rosie, is we then moved on to this lovely little chart here. So this looks at you as a person, but then your friend and the differences between the two of you. So we've been having, as I'm sure most families are right now, having sibling rivalry. It's rough in our house. So I decided that what we would do is use this to look at Rosie and her brother and see the similarities and differences between the two of them. Now this actually opened up a whole new world to the two of them, because although they can speak a lot about their friends and their likes, they didn't actually realise how much in common they both have, as well as how much was different about each other. So the fact that Rosie has blue eyes, Edward has brown eyes. Their hair colour is slightly different, but they discovered that they both like to eat cake. So this was really, really good fun. Using these circles, we can then demonstrate how similar we are, yet how different. And this is so, so important and highlights it, because it actually makes it fun. Like, it's okay for your friends to like one thing, but then it's okay for you to like something totally different. And this helps our children in so many different social situations. When they're, when they are together and they are playing, it'll give your child the confidence to be able to say, well, that's okay. You like to play that way, but I want to play this way. This is how I am happy playing, but it's okay that you like to do that, Mummy, because that's what makes you, you.
Mummy.
But I hope that these exercises have helped. You can find them all on Twinkle. So we look forward to seeing you next week. And we will see you soon. Bye.
Pen in my mouth.
Thank you so much, Kirsty and Rosie. Now, what's nice about those activities is you can use them to think about how differences can be acceptable. But the way that Kirsty used them with Rosie and her brother was that to look at how different they are, but how many similarities they had as well. So you can use them both ways. And today has been really got us thinking about reframing and seeing things in a different perspective. So we are getting towards the end of the show now, and it's back to Sharon for our cool down.
Thanks so much, Audrey. Well, I'm back this week with some more top tips for you. So here are my top tips for really thinking about being your true and authentic self and being comfortable with who you are. So tip number 1, adjust the way you think. You can't control what others think about you, but you can control about what you think about yourselves. So notice your inner self-talk. Your inner self-talk can be helpful. It can be your best friend. It can also be very harming. Notice if you're using the should word. When we use the word should, then there is an expectation behind that, either of somebody else or for ourselves. So trade that word should and replace it with could. Could opens up possibilities. It opens up choice for us. Gives us an element of control over choice. So tip number 2, think about spring cleaning your relationships. Now, sometimes, just like we spring clean our houses, we need to spring clean our relationships. Now, that might be holding somebody at a distance if we can't completely remove them from our lives. Some people are very toxic to us. And the more time that we spend with them, the more we might recognize that actually our real selves are disappearing and we forget who we are. So try to think about spending more time with people who embrace you, that build you up, that love what's different about you. People who will support you for who you are, not for what you do. And tip number 3, embrace your mistakes and find your voice. We learn so much more from the mistakes that we make rather than the successes that we have. So learn to embrace the mistakes and take the valuable learning from them. It's not your fault that something has gone wrong, but it's your responsibility to make sure that you grow and learn from that. Find your voice and speak to somebody who can mentor you, who can build you up, someone who can give you support and advice so that you can continue and grow to be comfortable with who you are and be your true, authentic self. So that's my tips for this week. Back to you, Audrey.
Thank you so much, Sharon. And one of the key things that you mentioned is your tip 3. Sometimes, whilst we can give you all of these exercises, all of these activities, there is no substitute for professional support. If you do need to speak to a therapist, if you do need to speak to a counsellor, go and speak to one. There's no shame in it. And we're here to help you and support you, but also to say it is okay as well to get help when you need it. So that brings us to the end of another show, and the last part, of course, is to pass over to Reverend Mandy Marriott of the Duston Parish with her thought for the week, which this week is on accepting and celebrating differences, but using them to collaborate to make things even better. Have a wonderful week. I hope you collaborate. I hope you feel authentic, and I hope you find the start of being the best you. From Sharon and I, thank you and bye-bye.
Bye.
Hello again. I wonder how many of you remember the BBC sitcom Keeping Up Appearances, starring, of course, the wonderful character of Hyacinth Bucket, or Hyacinth Bouquet as she loved to be called. Hyacinth was a social climber. She loved nothing more than visiting stately homes, having elegant dinner parties with her best Royal Worcester dinner service, boasting about her white slimline telephone with automatic redial. She would boast to her neighbours, her friends, and anyone important. The comedy, of course, shone through because we all realised her pretentiousness, and at the end of every episode, poor Hyacinth always ended up looking like a fool. But you see, we don't need to impress people. We can be happy with who we are, with the gifts and the talents that we have been blessed with. We don't need to try to be like anyone else. We need to accept who we are, and also, more than that, to enjoy the gifts and talents of others too. Just think for a moment. How loudly can you clap using only one hand? Or how well can you write without using your thumb? You see, every part of our body is important. You know, in the Bible we find a passage written by the great apostle St. Paul, and he taught that although a person's body is one thing, one unit, it is made up of many parts. This is what he said. He said, the foot might say, I'm not a hand, so I'm not part of the body. But saying this would not stop the foot from being part of the body. The ear might say, I'm not an eye, so I'm not part of the body. But saying that would not make the ear stop being part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the hearing be? If the whole body were an ear, where would the sense of smell be? If each part of the body were the same part, there would be no body. But truly, God put the parts in the body as He wanted them. He made a place for each of them. And so there are many parts, but only one body. So St. Paul makes the point that every part of the body is significant, is important. And you know, I believe that about each one of us in society, in our own communities, in our families. Each one of us is an individual, but each one of us is important, and we all have our own part to play. Let's take myself for example. I'm quite a visionary person. I might have an idea for a great project, and I can see how this project will be a great thing, and I can see it working. I can see how the thing will feel, how it will just grow, and I have all these ideas. But you know, I'm not a detail person, and I need someone else to fill in the picture, to write up the detail, to give me the process of how the project will happen. I can't do things on my own. I need other people. We work so much better in teams. Difference is something to be celebrated. And not only do we appreciate our own gifts and talents, but we can appreciate the different gifts and talents in others. I don't know if any of you are Star Trek fans. You might remember the Vulcan greeting. It goes, "Greetings, I'm pleased to see that we are different. May we together become greater than the sum of us." Greater than the sum of us. I like that. That talks about rejoicing in our uniqueness, but coming together and building something greater. So I would like you to celebrate your own gifts and talents, and celebrate the gifts and talents of those around you, and come together, work as a team. And who knows what an amazing and positive effect you can have on your community, your parts of the world. You have so much to offer. Bye for now.